Okay, the next dinim in Kitzur is the dinim of washing for bread. Anytime you have bread, you have to wash what's called netilas yadayim. Now, the reason for netilas yadayim, are various reasons Chazal give, was basically a takana by the way of Shlomo HaMelech, but there's two reasons. One reason is what's called srach truma, because when the koyanim would eat truma, they would have to wash their hands, and in fact they made a bracha. They actually make a bracha when they ate truma. So they would have to wash their hands, and therefore the Chacham said, bread, the meal, so you wash only bread, that you wash your hands like the koyanim. Another reason is because the table is a mizbeach, and it's like an altar, and the altar forgives the sins, just like therefore when you eat a meal, it's like the koyanim working in the Beis Hamikdash on the mizbeach, so therefore you wash your hands. What?
The Kohen, he gets fruits and meats and wheat, so he says, Al-Birkat Terumah, and then Al-Birkat Aperot or meat shakol. Says two brachot or
one bracha? No. Just eating truma, he makes a separate bracha, al-achilas truma, but whatever the bracha is, he eats, you're right.
So
Yeah. Okay, now, netilas yadayim, it's called netilas yadayim, and that's one of the reasons why we make the bracha al netilas yadayim. Why don't we say the bracha al rechitzas yadayim? Washing hands in Hebrew is rechitza. So why do we say the bracha al netilas yadayim? So Shulchan Aruch says the reason for that is because you have to wash an netilas yadayim with a vessel, with a keli. And in Hebrew, the word netila also refers to a vessel. So because you wash with a keli, dafka, so therefore you only make, you need the brachas al netilas yadayim. Now the keli, the utensil that you wash for bread and, okay, before we get there. For what do you have to wash? Okay, for bread. And this is a din a lot of people are unaware of, but it could be sometimes a question of a bracha in vain. And that is like this. Anytime you eat bread, you have to wash on netilas yadayim. You have to wash, for bread. We do 3 times in one hand, some people do twice in one hand, but there are different customs how to do it. But it can be alternating, like you do in the morning, because that's good for the evil impure spirit in the morning. For bread, you have to wash 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. You can't do alternating like you do for netilas yadayim, for in the morning. Now, any amount of bread, eat a drop, a crumb of bread, you have to wash for bread. The only time you make on netilas yadayim the bracha, when do you make the bracha, is halachically only when you eat 2 ounces of bread, a kibetza. To give you an understanding of that in practical language, there's a kazayas, which is the size of an ounce, and there's a kibetza, which is the size of an egg. In modern day language, a kazayas is an ounce, a kibetza is double kazayas, so it's 2 ounces. So let's say somebody is going to eat 1 slice of bread. They're going to eat 1 slice of rye bread. The 1 slice of rye bread is approximately a kazayas, but not a kibetza. So let's say you can have 1 slice of bread with your meal. So then you have to wash for bread, but you're not allowed to say al netilas yadayim, because the bracha is a bracha in vain. The only time you make the bracha al netilas yadayim is when you're going to be eating 2 ounces of bread, not 1 ounce of bread. Many times people wash in the middle of a meal. They're not planning to eat a lot of bread, but they're eating a little bit, so they wash, and then they eat a drop of bread, a small amount of bread, not even an ounce, and then they eat the rest of the meal. So then you have to wash for bread, but you're not allowed to say al netilas yadayim. The only time halacha says you make the bracha al netilas yadayim is you eat a kibetza, which is 2 ounces. Yeah. Hametzi you say on a crumb. On a crumb you have to wash on netilas yadayim. You don't make a bracha of al netilas yadayim, only if you're eating 2 ounces of bread. Okay, it's a very important thing because a lot of people just wash with on netilas yadayim, and you have to make sure to eat the kibetza. If you know you're only going to eat kazayas or even less, then you have to wash for bread, but you don't make the bracha.
You make less
No, if you eat any amount of bread, let's say you're having a small amount of bread and you're having a whole meal. So hamaitzi covers all the foods that are normally, we're going to get there one day. Hamaitzi covers all the foods that are normally eaten as a meal to accompany bread. But dessert, in other words, rephrase it.
I didn't understand, I'm not sure I understood.
Okay. The only time, bread covers all the foods in the meal. Food and drinks, except wine. Somebody washes and they drink wine in the middle of the meal, they have to make a very pure gofen on the wine. Okay? Once you drink wine, b'chlal, now I take a cup of wine and I drink other stuff, I don't have to make a bracha on any other liquids. Wine covers all liquids. Bread, ameitzi, bracha ameitzi, covers everything that you eat in the meal. So let's say through a Shabbos meal, for argument's sake. So you have fish and salad, it's covered with the hameitzi. Then you have chicken soup, it's covered with the hameitzi. Then you have a chicken or meat or whatever, that's all covered with the hameitzi. Okay? So let's say here is Shabbos Shalosh Shuddis for the sinners that eat Shalosh Shuddis, not the very Hasidic people here that don't eat Shalosh Shuddis. They'll speak Lashon Hara, do everything else, but they won't eat Shalosh Shuddis, God forbid. So the sinners that eat Shalosh Shuddis, so you make on Tilas Yadayim, you wash, you have to eat 2 ounces of the challah, and then whatever you eat in the meal, you don't make a bracha. But what happens, like this past Shabbos, we had watermelon. So somebody in the middle of the meal takes a piece of watermelon. So watermelon is a fruit. It's not something which is made to fill you up as the meal together with the bread. So hameitzi doesn't cover that. So even if you eat the piece of watermelon in the middle of the meal, you still have to make a very pure adam on the watermelon. Instead, but all foods that are what? I'm saying if you eat hameitzi, you make hameitzi, it covers all foods which are normally eaten to fill you up as part of the meal. Somebody who eats a fruit, even if they eat it in the middle of the meal, the hameitzi does not cover it. Okay? That's why in desserts, generally you make a bracha on the dessert, because dessert is not there to fill you up. Yeah, and unless the exception of that is if somebody eats cake at the end of the meal. So your dessert is cake. So then the halacha says, I'm not talking what Chassidim do, but in halacha it says, it depends why you're eating the cake. If you're eating the cake because you're still hungry, then you don't make a bracha on the cake. But it's a juicy cream cake, you know what I mean? And you're eating it because it tastes good, then halacha says you do make a bracha on the cake. So again, if you're eating it to fill you up, then it's covered by the hameitzi. If you're not eating, if it's something you don't eat to get filled up, like you have ice cream at the end of the meal, you have to make a shahakal on the ice cream. If somebody eats ice cream in the middle of the meal, you still have to make a shahakal on the ice cream because ice cream is not there to fill you up. One second. What?
So 2 things. First of all, if you have like pineapple pizza, or if you have like watermelon bread or something like that, it's part of the...
Oh, that's a different thing. If your meal is bread and watermelon, let's say, okay? Let's say your meal is bread and watermelon. So then it says, your first bite of watermelon you should eat together with a piece of bread, and then you don't have to make a bracha on the watermelon. I'll give you an example. Sometimes people will have peaches and cream. Used to be a very popular dish. Now, I don't think it's so much anymore. They used to eat peaches and cream, yeah? So they cut up peaches and mix it with cream or strawberries and cream, whatever. But if that's your meal, so you're eating that to fill you up. It's not peaches at the end of the meal or middle of the meal. Your meal is bread and peaches and cream. So it says in Shulchan Aruch, what you do is, when you start eating the peaches with the cream, you eat it together with a piece of bread, and then the bread covers it. What?
Two debates of bread or debates of any?
No, the din is a kibetza of bread.
What's the question?
No, he's asking, when you say 2 ounces to wash, does it mean only a bread, or what happens if I'm eating other things together? No, it's only on the bread that you need to eat a kibetza. Yeah. What? We'll get there soon.
So if you didn't have enough of the bread, you still bench and say the hamotzi, right? Or you need to...
Hameti you have to say anyway, but you bench. If you're full, you bench.
For benching.
Benching, you need a kazayas.
What's the difference of tasting?
1 second. You need a kazayas
So
to
if you
bench.
have enough bread-
But what happens if somebody had a half a kazayas of bread, but they frest the meal and they get full? Now with peaches and watermelons. But they had, let's say, a full dinner, and if you're full, then you have to bench. Even though you didn't need a kazayas of bread. It's not the best way to do it. You should eat a kazayas of bread. But it's not. What?
Is that the same with the donuts? If you have like half of the
No, that's only by bread.
The lachmania you have on Suda Shlishi, is enough like 2 ounces?
It depends. Sometimes you have very small, sometimes you go to a function, they have those tiny challah rolls.
You need both.
They might not even be a kazayas, by the way. You have to weigh it. But normally the challah rolls that you get, the normal size, if you look, when they sell it individually, they sell like 6 in a pack. So sometimes it's 12 ounces, sometimes say 1. Usually 6 would be 12 ounces. So then it's 2 ounces per thing, so you know what. What?
Tasting food, is it required to make a bracha?
Tasting food that you swallow, that you spit out. What do you mean you don't know? It depends. If you taste food and you swallow it, you have to make a bracha. If you taste food and you spit it out, like a lot of times they taste the soup to see if it's, but they don't swallow it. They spit it out. So then it's you don't make a bracha. You don't make a bracha on something in your mouth unless you swallow it. Like I'll give you an example. You brush your teeth, with toothpaste. So you have a good taste in your mouth from the toothpaste, but you don't make a bracha on the toothpaste. Why not? You're enjoying the taste of the toothpaste. Because you're not swallowing it. If you would swallow toothpaste, then it would have to be, you'd have to make a bracha on it. If somebody eats toothpaste, you'd have to make a bracha on it. But because of that, by the way, according to many, many opinions, toothpaste doesn't have to be kosher. Why? Because you're not eating it. It's not eating. You don't make a bracha, it's nothing.
If you eat something that is not food, you require to say bracha.
If it has a taste to it. I'll give you an example. Somebody chews gum.
Well, then the sweetness in the food.
Oh, but you're not swallowing the gum, but you're swallowing the taste of it. So over there you make a bracha on the gum. But toothpaste, you're not swallowing the toothpaste, you're spitting it out, so then you don't make a bracha.
If you swallow a pill without water, you don't say a bracha, right? If you swallow
No.
a pill.
If you swallow a pill with water, you don't make a bracha on the water either, unless you're thirsty. Okay, what? We're going way off. What?
There's a possibility of having to make a monkey but not to wash.
No. It says in Shulchan Aruch, even on a crumb of bread, you have to wash.
So you always wash with the possibility of running.
There's only another time. It's like there's one time you wouldn't have to make a wash on hametzi if the bread is there to hold it together or for color, but not for taste.
I'm going to chase it over the drink.
Then you're right. If somebody takes a shot of booze and then they need a chaser, it's called Bais Din. And the only thing around is bread. They eat the bread. They don't make a bracha on the bread. They don't have to wash on the bread either, because it's completely secondary to the whiskey.
Even if he has 4 or 5 shots and 4 or 5.
Okay, so lechatchila you don't do that. But I'm saying, what happens? You took a shot of booze and over so you take a. So then, because that's bottled to the whiskey, you're only taking it because of the whiskey. You don't want the bread by itself. So then, you would do it that way. Anyway, but the keli, what?
So kazayas is an ounce, so the olives in those days were much bigger than nowadays. Is that That's what they say.
They were bigger in those days, and in fact, Nismat or Shiurim, there's a whole discussion. That's what all the books.
Some say that that's.
Rabbi Avram Chaim Noah has a whole Sefer Shiur Torah that discusses all the amounts of the Shiurim, what the difference in the time of the Gemara and now, and all the, yeah.
And Tzach Truma, they wash their hands and their feet, but the soil can be able to wash their hands.
We don't wash your hands. We don't wash your feet. Machat shin sul ma'isem ma'arbe v'mayim kim shivla gal tev chon gashem med